not how much. It's not that you need, again, it's not that you need to be at level 10 and you're just at level 7. Faith, in its purest form, can move mountains. But it's belief, an unwavering belief, coupled with the work. So that's the first lesson we have here. So I'm going to pause here. Brother Joe, you had your hand up. Were you going to make a comment?
Well, I got this friend up in Virginia, right? So he goes to plant church down in Amazon. They count up how much it's going to cost before he goes. He has to figure if he can go.
Mm-hmm.
He has to faith. He's not going down there to die. He's planning on coming back. He said they camp on the side of the river and people bring it to him. He's relying on these people. They don't have enough gas on the boat to get down wherever they're going. So I think that's, we want to visit someone, count on if they live across. We believe they're going to be home when we get there, or we wouldn't go there.
Right.
We count the cost before we go. We have a faith they're going to be there, or we wouldn't bother to go.
Yeah.
So I just make that analogy.
All right. I appreciate that. Again, that would be an example of showing the belief and then the works that complement it going together. That's what perfects faith. James gives us this formula. It's belief plus works equals faith. And that's why it's very glaring in verse 19 of James chapter 2, when James says, as he's still making the point, you believe that God is one. All right, well, you do well. But guess who else believes that God is one? The demons do. Satan does. They believe in God, but their belief in God doesn't propel them to do works, right, that complement that belief. So belief by itself is not enough. Belief just puts us on the same footing or level as demons and Satan. If we want to do better, we have to have works to complement the belief. That's what perfects faith. And if you're still not convinced, if you turn back to, again, belief plus works equals faith. If you're still not convinced, the Hebrew writer, go ahead and turn to Hebrews 11. You know this is the so-called Faith Hall of Fame, what I call the Faith Hall of Fame, where the Hebrew writer, as he begins describing what faith is, and he famously says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things or convictions of things not seen, and so on and so forth. And then as he goes down through that chapter, again, he shows us example after example after example of true faith in action, right? So you'll see a belief works combination in each one of these verses, right? He says, by faith, in verse 4, Abel, here's the verb, here's the works. He offered, he did something, right? By faith, by his belief, he offered. In verse 5, or even verse 6, 7, 7, this is the good one. Speaking of Noah, by faith, what's the verb there? He prepared an ark. By his belief, he did something. He prepared an ark. In verse 8, he says, by faith, Abraham, the verb is, by his belief, he obeyed God, and so on and so forth. By faith, in verse 11, Sarah was given the ability to conceive, and so on and on and on it goes. It's just underscoring the point that faith is belief and works together. And the Hebrew writer's examples or references make that point as well. All right. Again, if you're still not convinced, turn over to Luke chapter 5. You remember when there was a man who had a physical ailment and his four friends came and took the roof off of this house where Jesus was, and they were carrying a man who was paralyzed, right? And then they let him down on this stretcher in front of Jesus. You remember that? Okay. Again, watch this. I'm going to start in verse 17 of Luke 5. It says, and it came about one day that he was teaching, and there were some Pharisees and teachers of the law sitting there, who had come from every village of Galilee and Judea and from Jerusalem, and the power of the Lord was present for him to perform healing. Verse 18. And behold, some men were carrying on a bed a man who was paralyzed, and they were trying to bring him in and set him down in front of him, and not finding any way to bring him in because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and let him down through the tiles with his stretcher right in the center in front of Jesus. And verse 20, it says, and seeing their faith, he replied, friend, your sins are forgiven. How can you see someone's faith? They have to be doing something. And the scripture says that he saw their faith. He saw their belief and actions working together. Again, just making the point even more sure here. So, good place for questions, comments, or feedback on this one point. Yes, sir.
All right. I'm thinking a little bit, I'm looking at trying to judge your faith, so I see your works, and so I judge your fruit. But now I'm looking introspectively and saying, all right, if I want to judge my faith, talk just internally,
Yes.
then I can turn to, did I have the confidence that what I believed in was going to happen before it happened?
Right. Yes, sir. Yep.
So I can judge my own fruit by my level of confidence.
Level of confidence, and then the action, the corresponding action working along with it. Yes, sir. It's not belief by itself. It's not works by itself. It's both of them together. But yes, sir. Excellent point. Other thoughts here? Because again, the first point that Jesus makes in his lesson is that faith requires belief and confidence. That's his point. And so that's the lesson for all of us. That's the lesson. Hold on. Any other thoughts here? Yes, sir.
Just thinking about connecting this is after the transfiguration, right? So
Yes.
on the mountain.
Yes, sir.
But connecting that with the golden calf, right? So Moses goes up, and the people start to lose their faith. They're like, where's this Moses guy? Right. And so they build this calf.
Right.
Not because they didn't have faith, it was the object that they put their faith in. And so with the disciples, I think it wasn't that they were completely lost of faith, but they had their faith in the wrong thing.
And what do you think they had their
They
faith
put
in?
their confidence in themselves.
Got it. So you think they put their confidence in? Could be true. Could be true.
Because the prescription, the solution that he gave them was prayer and fasting. So that whole fasting is denying self. So if that was the issue, you need to start denying yourself. You're putting confidence in your ability. As soon as I leave,
Yes. Yeah.
start believing in yourself.
Yeah. I like that. All right. Maybe so. Misplaced confidence. Clearly, there was something wrong with their confidence, and again, Jesus does call out their belief as well. That word there. Thank you for that, Brandon. And again, Matthew 17. If you really want to dig into this, in verse 20, where he says, "The littleness of your faith," Strong's Greek number, the Greek is number 571. And again, that points to a lack of belief. By the way, and I know we have one more comment, but just to connect the dots here, one more time. So when Jesus says in Matthew 17:20, because the littleness of your faith, that same word is used in these three occasions also in Matthew when Jesus utters his famous rebuke of his faithless disciples, "O ye of little faith." It's the same word. 3 times that comes up in Matthew. One time it comes up, and we talked about this, Matthew chapter 8, the verse is 26. It's the same word that Jesus uses in Matthew 17:20. But the issue in Matthew 8:26 is when Jesus and the disciples, they're in a boat, the storm comes. Jesus is in the stern of the boat asleep. You remember this? Storm comes, they wake him up. "Master, aren't you concerned that we're perishing?" And Jesus' favorite response is, "Why are you afraid? Why are you timid, he says, you men of little faith. So one issue there is fear that gets in the way of their ability to be faithful. So again, all of these connecting to someone's ability to believe. So here, their fear gets in the way. You flash forward just a little bit in Matthew chapter 14. Matthew 14, the verses 31, thank you. This is when Peter famously walks on water by Jesus' power. And he's doing fine for a while until he sees the wind swirling around him. And then he loses a part of his faith. He's got the works down. He's got the belief. He's doing all right in the beginning. But then he starts taking stock of the wind that's swirling around him. And in verse 31, Jesus famously says, well, in 30, but seeing the wind, Peter, became afraid and beginning to sink. He cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand, took hold of him, and said to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? In the first case, when they're in the storm, fear got in the way of their belief, having a negative impact on their faith. Here, in this context, doubt, wavering, hesitation got in the way of their belief and ability to hold on and have strong faith. And finally, in Matthew chapter 16, you go forward 2 chapters. Again, this is the situation where Jesus had just famously fed 5,000 people miraculously with just a little bit of bread, a little bit of fish. Prior to that, he had fed 4,000 people with the same. And so now they're in a situation. He happens to say, beware the leaven of the Pharisees. They're concerned, thinking, oh my goodness, we don't have bread, as if they needed it. And Jesus called them out again, Matthew 16. Let's just start at verse 6. Matthew 16. And Jesus said to them, watch out and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they began to discuss among themselves, saying, it is because we took no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, you men of little faith, why do you discuss among yourselves that you have no bread? Do you not yet understand or remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000 and how many baskets you took up? Or the 7 loaves of the 4,000 and how many large baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread, but beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees? Then they understood that he did not say to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Issue here is that they forgot, they did not remember the power of God. I want to suggest to all of us, and then I'm going to pause again. I want to suggest to all of us that the thing that we want to guard ourselves about, if you're serious about maintaining, complete mature faith, we got to make sure that we have unwavering confidence working together with our works or our actions. And some of the things that can get in the way of our unwavering confidence is fear, doubt, or forgetting the way that God has worked in our lives. And I'm including myself in that. I haven't reached the brass ring on this. I'm saying that we are all subject to things happening in our lives that can produce fear, doubt, or sometimes we just don't remember what God has done for us previously, and those things can short circuit our faith. I'll pause here again. Questions, comments, feedback. Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
So the disciples had a front row seat witnessing the feeding of 9,000 plus people.
Yes.
And then we have the gentleman who tear up the ceiling to get their friend to Jesus. And I think that says a lot about the people who had had heard things secondhand as compared to the disciples who
Yes.
had a front row seat and they
Yes.
still
Yes.
didn't get it.
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat that. So Melissa's essentially saying that when you look at the experience of the disciples, they had a front row seat into the ministry of Jesus, and they struggled in their faith, and they had a front row experience. Imagine us, 2,000 years removed, right? if you could actually walk with Jesus in your faith struggles, imagine the effort it takes to be 2,000 years removed and what that still may require. Excellent point.
All we have is prayer and Bible.
Yes. We have prayer, we have the Bible, we have the guidance of the Spirit. He still, now we don't get a pass. He still wants us to mature our faith, but you make a very good point that even people who walked with him still struggled with theirs. They had a front row seat. Excellent point. We got two hands. Sister Juanita, Ramon. We'll start with Sister Juanita. Yep. Right.
And faith is doing something even though you still doubt. If you were certain, it wouldn't quite be faith.
Right.
It takes a little bit of doubt,
Right.
and then you trust, and you still do it, and you still obey, and
Yes.
you still follow through.
Yes.
And that's what makes it faith.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you're right, and that sort of helps us hone in on truly what we mean by doubt here. So so you're exactly right that part of what makes faith is that the thing that you're believing in isn't here. It's not tangible, right? And in spite of our senses, we still believe in it. If you can't see it, hear it, taste it, or touch it, you still believe in it, even though you can't see it, hear it, and taste it. The issue with fear and doubt and forgetting is all of that's connected to God's ability. Our faith is, what we should not be doing is wavering in God's ability to produce that thing. But that's a good distinction. And Ramon, you had something? Yeah. Yes.
But it's easier, especially in this country where we are so blessed beyond our imagination. Go to other countries, see other people. And I say this because you go back to Job, that he had. And us as Christians, we have everything. We have good, we have health, we
Yeah.
have a job, we have, if everything goes well,
Yes.
we have faith.
Yes.
But as soon as something is touched from us, like Job,
Yes.
when we have that faith, and I recall just a couple weeks ago when Jerry was talking about his situation in the job,
Yes.
and I think a lot of us have gone through that too as well. Like, man,
Yes.
we started out have to kind of lose kids,
Yes.
lose. That's where our faith is tested, like gold, it goes to the fire. But if everything goes well, man,
Yes.
it's easy to have faith.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's I appreciate that, and again, that's similar to the point that I'm hearing in Sister Juanita as well. That it's easy for us to say that we have faith when you don't have to believe in something that's not available to you. I mean, you get a diagnosis or for whatever, a health diagnosis of some sort, and it's not clear to man what the options are to heal you. That requires, if I catch a cold, I'm good. Right? Like I don't feel like I don't panic because there is 1,000 different, treatments available to deal with that. Right? But you get some other diagnosis that can change the calculus. Right? Me quitting a job and because I've gotten another job is one situation. When you lose a job and now you're looking, that's a different situation. Right? And so these are all good points here that we understand that faith, by definition, it's going to require something unknown to us. But we're believing in God's ability to provide, and that's what has to remain strong, and we have works to support that ideal. It is sun shining right now. It looks beautiful outside. The prediction is, man says it's going to get up to 66 degrees here in North Carolina today. And